Welcome, marketing chefs. I've got something truly special cooking in our Omni-Channel oven today. Marketing Kitchen TV Q&A 7. Up next in the Marketing Kitchen. Welcome to the kitchen, the Marketing Kitchen. Hi, I'm Ron Vining, your host of Marketing Kitchen TV. Hey marketing chefs, how are you doing today? Welcome back to the next episode of Marketing Kitchen TV Q&A Live. This is episode 7. All right, I left off with a great question from Michael, where we are talking about Omni-Channel and the differences between traditional versus digital marketing. And to me, there's really no distinction. It's about utilizing the best channel to reach your customer. So we're going to pick up here with Matt's question. And before I do, I just want to remind you that if you'd like to ask me a question here at Marketing Kitchen TV, all you need to do is go to the @MarketingKitchenTV on Twitter, utilize the hashtag Q&A, and I will answer your questions here. We have a new Instagram feed for Marketing Kitchen TV as well. It can be accessed at @MarketingKitchenTV, and I would appreciate it if you would join. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to subscribe and like this video. And please, if you've got a question, ask a comment in the sections below. All of these will help us to grow this channel. And this channel truly is a labor of love. If you watch anybody's content on YouTube, it takes time. It's something that you might watch at home that you might not have tried to do before, and you might think, oh, that's easy. Well, it is easy to get started, I guess, to say. Well, it is. It is easy to get started, but it's difficult to sustain. This takes time, and depending upon what you're doing on that channel will take more or less time as well. The reason that I've tried to simplify this process is to go to this live format as opposed to utilizing edited videos. Before, and unfortunately I was filming in 4K on my iPhone, and but that meant that I needed to then do a lot of editing, where I would have to edit, so in real time, so I'd have to be record with my iPhone. I would then have to, on my MacBook, do the Twitter portion that you see right here. I would then have to import those two separate files into iMovie. Again, not a big deal, but you'd have to sync them up. There would be times maybe where you'd want to interlace, where I would go full screen or the question would go full screen. You would then find the temptation of wanting to edit. And for me anyway, being a perfectionist, if I start editing, I'm gonna chop that, like if you ever see a sushi restaurant, where they chop that up, or the bishuteki, then that's what I would be doing with the videos. And then a 30-minute recorded video will be 5 hours in production. And then, of course, you have to create the thumbnail, as I've mentioned before. You have to create the text that's there. You then have to promote it on social if you want people to know that it's there and to watch it. So it is just a 30-minute video could end up taking you the whole day end to end if you really wanted to. So I found that was not working for me. That delayed me from recording these. And then that's why I've switched to this format, and now why I have this border around here, to try to make things happen a bit more quickly. Before, I was interlacing in a lot of graphics. So when I was standing on that side of the kitchen and having the stove being in display and all of that, I was utilizing this wall over here, the other side of this, as my display, where I would be interlacing a lot of graphics. I could do that over here, but by putting this border here, because of iMovie, I can't enter in two sources at the same time. There's a way that I could layer it, but that would take more time. So now I'm not tempted to flash in objects here, which might make the video more engaging, but then might add an additional 3 to 5 hours of my time, which means I can't get these videos out. All right, why did I waste your time with that? Well, hopefully I didn't. I'm just trying to provide some insights into how you could put together your own YouTube channel. And some of the time that it takes to create it. It's also about being comfortable in it. And I found, or people have said to me, that when I'm recording my edited non-live videos on this side of the kitchen here, I'm not as relaxed as I might be in this environment here. And yeah, I can feel that, because here I know that, I don't know, here I can't make a mistake, but well, wait, if I do make a mistake, I know that I just have to move on. Whereas in the other one, I feel that because, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. I'm just rambling. So we'll just get to your questions here. By the way, because I'm stuck in the house, and good excuse anyway, right? You might know from browsing through my YouTube channel or through my at Ronald Vining Instagram page, I love to build Lego. In particular, I love to build Star Wars Lego. Well, because stuck in the house, I received a couple of shipments the past few weeks. So I've had some Lego delivered to my home, and I'll be building some Lego, and I'll probably either start doing the Lego videos right here in this space, or I'll go back to the other formats that's there. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, though I can actually envision where we could continue to film in this environment here, and then I could use my iPhone to have recorded video about the sets, and I could then have them on display where this Twitter box section is here, and I could do a split screen that way. So I've been thinking in my head about how I can utilize this format that I've been trying out now into something that would make me more likely to post a video a day. I also have been thinking about different content that I would release on a daily basis. So for example, right now I've posted 5 Q&A videos in a row, taking off the weekend. I've recorded episode 6. This is episode 7 that you're in now. And I'll probably go for maybe 10 total of these. Before then I shift and I start going back to interlacing with this type of video content, going with sort of my Lego builds or reviews, perhaps talking about film or TV shows in the streaming space, and that's where I'll be doing Appflix reviews like I had talked about before. Maybe I'll start actually cooking again in the Marketing Kitchen. I actually cook you wouldn't believe it because the kitchen is always clean and immaculate, but I actually cook two times a day at home, and I'm just a neat freak, so it's always super clean. But I should actually start sharing with you my recipes. And if you don't believe that I cook, I invite you to watch, there's an Avengers video that I have. And in fact, I will hopefully remember to leave it up in an info thing here, and you can click on it. But I did a review of Avengers Endgame, and at the same time I cooked my soup. And I was doing an analogy of that recipe and Endgame. And then I also talked about the horrible sequel Star Wars trilogy. And yet I'm a huge Star Wars fan. But there's also a video that I have called Marvel versus Star Wars. And you can take a look at that if you want. And if I remember, I'll link that in there too. All right, some other content I was thinking about, by the way, and please let me know in the comments section. So I'm thinking that we'll do these Marketing Kitchen TV Q&A videos. I will cook. And so I'm thinking about, on a program day each week, having a Q&A, having a cooking segment, doing, of course, the Lego, doing a film review. So that's 4 days of the week. And I've also thought about potentially doing a masterclass. So not so much a Q&A here, but I actually will take my training slides, because now that I'm grounded, because of COVID-19 and I'm not out doing my typical corporate training and speaking, that maybe I could take some of my old training decks because that content is getting older now, and I won't take the time to update it. But I could do a split screen with my PowerPoint, and I've got over 35 different modules that I've created on different topics. So we maybe do like a master class each week, so that would be 5 types of things to talk about, and then that's 2 other days to fill in. So what could those be about? That I don't know, and that's what I would like to hear from you. What kind of content would you like to see here on Marketing Kitchen TV? And if there's no comments in the section below to this, then I'll know that nobody cares. One thing I thought about doing is I've been to just about every theme park on the planet, and been on anyway, I've got a ton of photographs. Unfortunately, I wasn't big on recording videos, but because of this format here, I could just go through a slideshow of the photos, and I could talk about different theme parks and attractions around the globe. Anyway, I'm just thinking about something that I'm interested in. I always wanted to do, I had pitched to the Travel Channel back in like 2000-ish. I had actually filmed a video and I had sent it to them, and I had pitched to them about doing a TV series called Ron's Roller Coaster Road Trip. And I had pitched that I would go around the globe riding every single roller coaster and reviewing them. And then of course the theme park that roller coaster or those coasters were in. The Travel Channel and I talked about that briefly, but then nothing ever happened with it, unfortunately. Oh well, I tried. But yeah, I could do something like that. I don't know, would that be interesting to the audience there? Let me know. And the final thing I was thinking of doing, and maybe this is perhaps, I want to stay away from politics, but I want to touch this third rail. Well, actually, I could do music reviews too, but I guess that kind of goes in with the AppFlix. So with AppFlix, I could be doing reviews of TV series, films, video games, streaming services themselves, right? And then also music. So that could be in that AppFlix category, and that could be rotating from week to week, which of those categories are there or what's relevant. But another one I was thinking about doing was being a pastor of sorts. And so everyone might laugh at this one, but I did go to a Christian high school, and I did memorize most of the Bible, and I've taken a number of Bible courses and history ones. In fact, I did electives when I was in university too, about the Bible as art, the Bible as history, etc. I think I have lost more knowledge on the subject than most people would ever know, but I'm really curious about, and just bear with me for one more minute here before we get to your questions. I'm very curious about discovering or understanding what it's all about. And so I've been a devout Christian my entire life, but when my grandfather passed away in 2012, and then when my grandmother passed away now in 2020, I really find myself questioning my faith. I find myself questioning what's real, and I want to run outside and strangle those kids that are screaming right now. It's a good thing I'm a Christian. Anyhow, I really am curious about doing some discovery. So not really preaching, but just kind of talking about, I don't know, I'm not sure. I want to just have a discussion about faith. I took a class at Suffolk University too called A Religion in American Society. It was a bizarre course, but we studied everything from like tribal religions all the way up to, traditional religions, and then also religions that were classified as cults and everything. Anyway, it's a fascinating subject, and I really just want to explore what's real and what's fake. And I'd love to actually be able to go on like an Indiana Jones quest to find the origins of these religions and try to prove or disprove them. So, oh well, hey, when So here's a crazy thing. When AppFlix becomes a huge success and I sell it for 40 to 80 million dollars, I will then go on a quest around the globe trying to find the answer to some of these questions. I want to kill those kids. And then I live at a condo and I'm on the ground floor. And so, of course, everybody's cooped up. So most people are cooped up at home or they're running around the ground. So I understand that. But I never understood parents that allow their children to just scream. Okay, that would be my approach. So, all right, that'll end the religion discussion. Ancient aliens. Have you ever watched any of those shows about ancient aliens and like the ties to religion? One of the things that really fascinates me is finding hieroglyphs that show technology, things like microwaves, things like open heart surgery, things like a transporter beam. These are some really crazy things that we've seen in hieroglyphics, but they weren't just contained to Egypt. They were in China and they were also in the Americas. And so how did ancient peoples who never were able to interact or mingle with each other that we're aware of have these similar aspects? So yeah, something that I'd really like to look at or study or explore from a whole different avenue. All right, this could have been another whole video, right? I apologize for that. Okay, let me get to Matt, your question. Matt, you've been waiting all of this time. All right, let's address it here. Okay, Matt, you ask, when implementing a real-time planning strategy, this sounds quite familiar too, but we'll see. The question that I had answered in episode 6, this is episode 7, where, let's see, who was it? Oh yes, Enrique, you had asked the question about a real-time planning approach, about viral video. So let's see how Matt syncs up to that. When implementing a real-time planning strategy, it is important that businesses deliver a clear and concise explanation of their plan to their employees. However, is this type of strategy cause for concern for stakeholders? So stakeholders are also employees, right, Matt? So I'm trying to understand what the question is here. When implementing a real-time planning strategy, it is important that businesses deliver a clear and concise explanation of their plan to their employees who are also stakeholders, right? However, is this type of strategy cause for concern for stakeholders? So Matt, I don't really understand the question, because employees are also stakeholders. Your stakeholders, so let's answer this, but I'm not sure that this is your question, so I don't sure this is the answer you're looking for. But a stakeholder, right, is any potential person who could be involved in that audience that has some tie back to what it is that you want to achieve. So if you are a business, your stakeholders are your employees, they're your vendors, they are your suppliers, they are your customers, they are politicians, they are anybody that could impact your business in some way, positive or negative. Your stakeholders can certainly be your shareholders also. So the difference between a stakeholder and a shareholder or a stockholder, right, is somebody who has a financial attachment to your particular brand. So I'm not exactly sure what it is that you mean by this. I think saying about real-time planning, one of the aspects about real-time planning is it's planning on the fly. So maybe potentially your shareholders, your stakeholders, your board of directors, while the employees can deal with a on-the-fly type of campaign, that up where there's financial restraints or constraints, or they want to know exactly what the trajectory is going to be. Maybe it's people, maybe you're a startup and you've gone for a series of funding and they want a solid traditional marketing plan with measured steps across the process, and they're not going to be fine with a real-time plan. Maybe that's what you're trying to say, but in response to that though, I would have, and this is what I typically do, so as I mentioned to you before, first I got my start in retail marketing. Actually I worked in retail stores as a sales associate, but then I became an assistant marketing director for an REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust, where I managed and did the marketing for a number of shopping mall properties or mixed-use properties. I then went into the MBTA, and at the MBTA, I oversaw one of their largest expansion programs in the history of the MBTA, expanding the service up to Maine, down to Rhode Island, and out to Western Massachusetts and to Cape Cod. And along the way, building a number of stations, intermodal facilities, parking facilities with retail and mixed-use business. One of them would be Station Landing and my own home of Medford, Massachusetts. So there's that piece of my background, but then there was also the political marketing piece of my background where I managed political campaigns all the way from school committee up to the White House. And so as a campaign manager, as a campaign consultant, we did have a we did have a structured campaign plan. And that campaign plan goes from election day to the primary, and from the primary election day to wherever the campaign announces. And then in between that structured campaign, we would have a number of real-time campaigns. So you would break up that overall or arcing strategy that you have with more, let's see, what's the word? Just with smaller slices of the pie that could be done in these real-time endeavors. So you're satisfying those that were donating heavily to the campaign and also working with a number of other, so let's say it was the Republican or Democratic Party or the Republican or Democratic senatorial or congressional committee, and those are where they're giving you a larger sum of money and they want to see your structured campaign plan. So that works for them, and that of course is something you'd follow. But for your campaign team on the ground, you would have these week-to-week real-time campaigns. Does that make sense? So perhaps that's what you were asking, Matt, and hopefully I answered that. So this can also be applied to a corporation. And we did that, of course, in the shopping mall business as well, where we would have an overall strategy for the shopping mall's marketing campaign to get foot traffic into the mall. And so then we would look at our calendar, right? So you would have Thanksgiving and Christmas as big shopping periods. You would have Easter, you would have back to school, you would have Halloween, right? So we're typically around holidays, we would base when we could get more people into the mall, and we'd create an overarching campaign on that. We would then factor in when we'd be renovating the mall, when we'd be adding new tenants into the mall, what type of promotions that would be added around those promotions or in between those holiday promotions. And then of course we had real-time planning on the ground to mitigate things that happen. Think about if you were in the retail business right now, right? So your overarching campaign comes to a screeching halt, and then real-time on-the-ground planning has to happen. Jumping into an e-commerce environment, seeing which employees you can still retain and continue to pay while during the downtime, as well as then crafting a strategy for what are you going to do when the world opens up again and the lockdown stop. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Matt. Okay, taking on the next question, we have Jazz. Jazz, I think this is the first question I'm answering of yours. Correct me if I'm wrong. And just looking at the calendar, we're going back to March now. I wonder how many episodes it would take for me to get back to when you started in February. And so that means that we're in March 5th. That would mean I would have a month further to go back, while at the same time new questions are being asked up on the front end, way up here on the stream. when I move here, you can't see my hand. Okay, all right, Jazz, you asked the question, and you're wondering, why am I even saying that? I don't know. I'm just wondering how many of these episodes I'm going to get a chance to film, because when I'm doing these and I'm working on YouTube and I'm grading and doing those things, I'm not working on getting the AppFlix site ready, which is supposed to launch in Q2 2020. But I suppose Q2, I have 3 months to launch, right? So it doesn't have to be April, even though it was supposed to launch in December. So just trying to manage the time there. Okay, Jazz, getting back to your question. Generations like the baby boomers typically use more forms of traditional media, but are slowly adapting to new technologies. Is this because they feel obligated to keep up with the younger generation and growing technologies? Interesting. All right, before I answer that question, Jazz, there's a video that I answered about the difference between baby boomers versus millennials, or a millennial marketing one. So I'll try to remember to dig up that video, and if I remember, it's linked right here. So I encourage you to, if I remember, it's linked there. If I forget, just go to the Marketing Q&A playlist, and there's one where I talk about marketing to millennials, and so some generational marketing, which I won't cover that here because I've covered that in a prior video. All right, now let me try to answer your question. Okay. The first thing that I want to say as a plane is going by, so you may or may not be able to hear me, the first thing I want to say about this, Jazz, is that there's a misnomer, or there's this misconception that millennials are the tech-savvy generation. And now don't get offended yet. You will. You're not the most tech-savvy generation. You're not. And I'll tell you why you're not. If your laptop were to break down, or your desktop were to break down, what would you do with it? Would you know how to open it up and fix it yourself? If the software, so if your Windows or your Word or whatever program you're using were not working correctly, would you know how to go into the DOS or into the command files to be able to tweak it, to get it to optimize it to work better? And so my answer to both of those is probably you don't know how to fix the hardware and you don't know how to fix the software. And you know why? Because it was my generation that went from the typewriter to the technology that you're using today. But in my day, we had to load the software programs in ourselves, and when the software didn't work or didn't update correctly, we actually manually went in and we fixed it. We created our own patches to fix it. If the device failed, we got to open our screwdriver kit, we opened up the device, we went to stores like CompUSA, which is gone, we would go to Micro Center in Cambridge, which was one of the first computer stores in the area, and we would find the products and we'd ask the guy there or gal there, hey, you know, I got this problem with my processor. How do I put a new heat sink in? And so they tell you, and you would then go home with your purchases and you'd fix it yourself. So to say that millennials are the most tech-savvy generation, I'm sorry, you guys are not. And are the baby boomers? Well, most of them are not. But me, a Gen Xer, I'm that bridge between the two. So I actually believe that we're the most tech-savvy generation, because I don't think that filming a TikTok video and getting 60,000 views qualifies as being most tech-savvy. Or maybe I'm wrong to say that, or maybe I'm wrong to think that. But to answer your question, baby boomers. My grandfather, who passed away in 2012, he was of the greatest generation, World War II veteran. He is my biggest hero. I love him to death. And, well, no pun intended, but I mean, when he passed away, that was like, so not to get personal, but my father, who was also a Vietnam veteran, he died when I was 10 years old. And of course, that was very difficult for me. But losing my grandfather compounded that. Why? He to me was probably one of the most amazing men that have ever walked on this planet. And I'll tell you why. Here's a guy who, in retirement, we went to a computer show and he bought an old junk, or actually my uncle, his son, gave him a junk old computer. And my grandfather, just for the heck of it, took that thing apart. When we were at a computer show, he bought all of these parts and components for it. And people weren't going to Google back then to look things up. You were asking at Jeeves, or you were searching for stuff that just wasn't there. So you typically bought traditional books. And he built a computer. He learned how to code. And this was in his late 60s, early 70s. So by the time he passed away at just before 90, he had built an award-winning website that the US Navy was using, because he was in the Navy when he was a serviceman in World War II. But to me, that exemplified the fact that we should not utilize generations as a boundary for technology. And we should not make assumptions that somebody who is part of the greatest generation, part of the baby boomers, part of Generation X, which I am, Generation Y, Generation Z, Millennials, whoever it might be, we should never make the assumption that one is more tech savvy or less tech savvy just because of their age, right? I think it's very important as a marketer not to make that distinction. And the fact that we can really pinpoint who our customer is, we should never be making assumptions based on age, okay? So as a marketer, I think that's very important to do. I'm always amazed that especially in American political correct society, where everybody has a label to throw on everybody, that we target people based on age, but yet we can't. So in other words, we can't call coronavirus a Chinese virus, even though it originated in China. But it's okay to say that, and I'm not criticizing you, Jazz, because everybody does that a baby boomer is not tech savvy because of their age, right? So when is profiling or stereotyping okay, but when is it not? Anyway, really, as a marketer, I think we can do a lot better with that. So though, to answer your question, and I'll start the timer again because I went on a huge tangent, that I wouldn't say that baby boomers are feeling obliged to utilize the technology. I think what happens is that, and it's typically not even their children, it would be grandchildren. I've witnessed the case where the grandmother is given an iPad or they're given an iPhone and by their child typically. Like, for example, I know that, I want to, speaking about children, I want to strangle these children that keep yelling outside my window. What happens is that typically the children buy this for their parents. They then give them a quick sort of hands-on how to use it. It's not until they have grandchildren that they really begin to learn or utilize the device. So I wouldn't say that it's out of obligation. I just think that there's just a learning curve. And so you typically need to learn with someone. It would be just like learning a language. It's one thing to learn a language on your own. It's another thing to learn a language with someone else. And if your child or grandchild is taking a language up at school and you're working at home with them to help them learn that language, then that would be much easier for you to pick up that language as they are, right? So I hope that answers your question that's there. I don't think that they're trying to keep up with the younger generation. I don't feel that I need to keep up with any of you. And I'm not saying this to be And so this is to the younger members of my audience, right? And this isn't me patting myself on the back saying I'm perfect, but I don't need to try to keep up with you. What I do and what I know and what I've learned and what I continue to learn, and I obviously can learn from you, and you of course can learn from me, but I would say that whether you're Gen X or whether you're a baby boomer, it's not about keeping up, it's just about seeing what's out there and taking advantage of that. Now, some people, regardless of their age, are hesitant to change. They feel scared of change, and they need somebody to work with them to help them to do it. For example, my friend and I, again, I mentioned before, we talk about how his daughter is addicted to TikTok. I would like to be on TikTok. I would like to get 60,000 views of me doing nothing. I don't feel threatened by that. I don't feel obligated to be on there to try to compete. And I don't think that it's necessary to use that channel to engage for what I do. Now, if at a time comes that my customer is somebody of a younger age group, so for example for AppFlix, I'm going to want to engage on those channels. But what I'm going to do though is I'm going to hire somebody that loves to be on that particular platform to manage that platform for my business, because I have no interest, because I have no obligation, and I really have no desire to be involved with that. But as a marketer, will I understand that? Will I seek to understand that and the audience and how that works? Well, the answer is yes, because not only do I need it for my business, I need that for my clients. So I hope that answers your question, Jazz, and then also offered more. Maybe I offered too much, but hopefully you found that of use. Hope so. All right, I know this video is running really long, so I'm going to take both of your questions, Jessica, and I love these promoted posts that are right here. And then let's see, what else do we have? Why is smart? Okay. Zane, pretty much I answered this question of yours in chapter or episode 6. Maybe we'll hit that in a minute. But let me see. Okay, Jessica, let's hit your question here. Does the most important stage in the strategic planning process differ from creating a digital marketing strategy to a traditional marketing strategy? Does the most important stage in the strategic planning process differ from creating digital versus... Okay, I can answer that one in 1 minute. No. Okay, next. No. All right, Jessica, let's see. No, to be more serious. Does it differ from digital versus traditional? No, the answer is no. So whenever I meet with a new client, or let's say that on the rare instance I actually decide to go for a job interview, which I typically, so I get offers on LinkedIn, obviously before what happened has happened. But prior to that, yeah, I get a random headhunter there that reaches out to me. And so I'm not interested in working for anyone. I typically, if somebody asks me if I'm interested in interviewing for something, I say, well, would your client, so the company, rather than them looking for a full-time CEO, CMO, or CTO, would they rather just outsource that function to me? So, but when we have that meeting, I'm typically asked a similar question to this. And the question is what type of marketing do you specialize in? And I say, I don't. I specialize in marketing. Well, but what type? Are you traditional or are you digital? And then I have to go through this answer. And it's a good one, so it's a great question, Jessica. There's no such thing as traditional marketing or digital marketing. It's marketing. Marketing is understanding, here's you as the brand, here's you as the customer. What is the channel and message, content, strategy, whatever this is going to happen in the middle here, whatever I need to do from here to reach you here, in this space here, I'm going to do to reach you. Whether that's a traditional tool, whether that's radio, that's television, that's an out-of-home display, that's the physical environment, that's that experience, or whether it's digital. So whether that is social media, that's mobile, that's digital, that's VR, that's augmented reality, that's big data, anything that is necessary for me to create a message to get to you across whatever channel that might be is what I'm going to do as a good marketer. Anybody who tells you that they're this or they're this, so any clown, and I face these clowns all the time, any clown that talks about, I'm a pure digital marketer. Well, you know what? You're a loser. You know why? Because you do not understand what's necessary to follow your customer from the minute they wake till the minute they fall asleep. You need to understand every tool in the toolkit. If you're a pure digital marketer, you're gonna fail. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Why? Because you need to understand the customer. The customer is a physical, real person living in a physical, real world. And digital is not going to reach them in every aspect of their life. You've got to understand all aspects, all tools in the toolkit to reach the customer. All right, great question, Jessica. And if I seem passionate about that, I am. There are so many charlatan marketers out there. I see them all on LinkedIn. I'm getting sick of them. I'm getting sick of getting their pitches. I'm getting sick of getting these lead generation pitches from people that don't know marketing at all. And these people that write these books they didn't actually write, there's a ghostwriter that writes this very formulaic, very generic, not researched BS books that they then slap their face on the cover of it, and then they market themselves to say that they're an expert on something, and then they say that their book was the #1 bestseller in. Well, ask them specifically, what was the #1 bestseller in? Because on Amazon, you can create your own category. So if you create cats with brown hair that like to drink Pepsi, well, you're going to have the #1 book in that category, because guess what? No one else is putting their book in that category. It's all BS. So anyway, you got to be very careful out there about when we talk about what is marketing, whether it's traditional, whether it's digital, whether it's social, whether it's mobile, whether it's sales, whether it's communication, whether it's advertising, whether it's PR. All of this plays in together. And I love marketing. I love this. This is what I've been doing my entire life. And I hate seeing people who don't understand how it works, how it functions. And that's not you, Jessica. You're just asking the question. I'm just being very passionate about how I'm answering it, because I really care about how marketers are perceived. And technology is just another tool for somebody to be creative and to craft that message and get it to the audience. Final question for today, again, is you, Jessica, and because so whenever kids behave badly, just an aside here, I never actually get angry at the children. I get angry at the parents. My saying is usually, there are no bad children, there are just bad parents. And I really wish that I could actually take the parent and I could scold the parent and I could school the parent so that they would then have a well-rounded, common sense, disciplined, respectful child. You're totally doing your children a disservice when you allow them to run wild in the environment without any discipline. It's just gets me so livid. And it's only because I don't want to disconnect the mic that I don't run outside onto my patio and start scolding child and parent. Okay, Jessica, final question. When a company starts online branding, what makes or breaks if the company succeeds in reaching their online platform? When a company starts online branding, what makes or breaks if the company succeeds in reaching their online platform. Are you reading what I'm reading, Jessica? Okay, again, a few videos ago I said, make sure once you craft your tweet that after you post it, you read it and you read it a couple of times, and if it doesn't flow, then edit. Well, you can't edit, but redo it. So copy it, delete this one, and then do a new one so that the question flows. All right, let me try to answer your question, trying to understand it as written. All right, Jessica, what makes or breaks in the campaign, I guess, and whether it succeeds in reaching their online platform? Maybe this will help me out. Online branding to Red Bull is key to their success, from video content to social media. All right, I guess trying to understand the question here, to answer it, is I'm really not sure what you're asking, Jess. But it's okay. So the components here to break this down is you as the brand, you want to do brand initiatives to get your message or your name out there. So maybe it's not exactly to sell, maybe it's just to create an image. And what you do is you choose the channels that are best suited to introducing your brand to the customer. Maybe the best thing to do is to spend a couple of $1 million on a Super Bowl ad, and you introduce in 15, 30, 60 seconds, imagine how expensive that would be, the world, what your company does and that you exist. Maybe you go about it that way. Maybe the best thing to do is to create a really slick website, which is engaging, and you create a good piece of content, and you run promoted posts driving traffic to your website to introduce the customer. Maybe at a festival or a rock concert, you sponsor a booth that you have there, and as the patrons viewing the shows come walk past your booth, you're giving a free sample and you're interacting with potential customers to introduce them to your brand. So whatever the opportunity is, whether it's a promoted post or an ad on a social digital channel, or whether it's something in the physical traditional environment, you would measure the success on here was my brand before we started, and hopefully here was my brand after we did those engagements, regardless of what the tool was in the toolkit that we're using to do that. I think I'm answering your question, but I'm not 100% sure what the question that it was. The platform, again, can be, you asked specifically about social, so you asked online. So the platform could be anything. It's the channel, right? Whether that's a website, whether that's LinkedIn, that's Instagram, that's Twitter, that's Facebook, that's Snap, WeChat, Line, TikTok, YouTube. So your success is based upon how your brand grows or is measured, or when you measure it, how it's rated from before. So you do a pre and you do a post assessment to see where that's at. So I hope that covers or answers your question there. If not, in the comments below, please let me know what it is that you were specifically asking, and then I'll answer it there. Okay, great. All right, thank you very much for tuning in to episode 7 of Marketing Kitchen TV Q&A Live. I went off the rails a few times in today's episode, which is good, right? That's what happens when you're live, that happens. Hopefully that's good. If not, I'll hopefully be more contained or restrained in episode 8. If you'd like to ask a question, please go to @MarketingKitchenTV on Twitter. Utilize the hashtag Q&A, and I will answer your questions here on YouTube. We also have an Instagram channel that can be found at this same @MarketingKitchenTV handle. so please follow us on Instagram as well. But if you have a question for us, go to Twitter right here and ask a question, and I will answer it here on YouTube. Thanks again. This was episode 7. I will see you next in episode 8. Thank you. Keep safe out there. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, there's always fresh content simmering on our storytelling stovetop. So whatever happens in this kitchen shouldn't stay in this marketing kitchen. I'm Ron Vining, your host, reminding you to invite your family and friends to the next episode of Marketing Kitchen TV.